ॐ श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादं शङ्करं लोकशङ्करं शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः ईश्वरो गुरुरात्मेति मूर्तिभेदविभागिने व्योमवद्व्याप्तदेहाय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। ॐ नमः प्रणवार्थाय शुद्धज्ञानैकमूर्तये निर्मलाय प्रशान्ताय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। What is the Tat Shabda? What is it? Atma, the only Chaitanya Swarupa, which is the capacity to reveal everything. No other Vastu can be said to be Chaitanyam. Everything that we know, we see, we perceive, borrows Chaitanyam, borrows its very being from that Atma. Often we don't know what it is, but we know there is something. Our conclusion is very clear that there is something which activates, enlivens, energizes everything here, including my Sharira. What is it? I don't know. And that's something, what happens to it after this body falls? This was indeed Nachiketa's first question. What is it that energizes the body? And what happens to that after the body dies? Vichikitsitam. Asti teke, nasti teke. Some people say something is there still, it continues. Some people say there's nothing. Not only Nachiketa, even Devatas were confused. We have to understand this idea of Deva little clearly. Deva, like Manushya, are also Ishvara. But Ishvara that we know, the Nirguna Brahman, is not Deva. Nor is it Manushya. So what is the difference between Deva and Manushya? Deva have a apekshika sarvajñatvam and apekshika sarvashaktimatvam. Very high level of knowledge in certain specific areas. That's why I keep calling them domain experts. But even those domain experts, they cannot say, I am Sarvajna in this field. Nobody can say that. No scientist will ever, if he is a true scientist, claim that I know everything about my subject, whatever the subject is. Subject may be mind, subject may be flower, subject may be cosmos, and he may have worked on it all his life. But if he's truly a scientist, the more he works on that field, the deeper goes into the field, the more he is able to recognize that what he is understood is a fraction of what is there to be understood. In that particular field, and he doesn't know anything about any other field. So in a sense, you can think of Devatas a slightly more exalted form. They are also not Purna. They are denizens of other Devalokas of various types. who have apekshita nityatvam, whereby our count of earth years, we live maybe about 100 years. By the same count, they may live, we don't know, thousands and thousands of years. They may have apekshika sarvashaktimatvam in their field. So if we have Aditya Deva, he is very highly knowledgeable about the idea of sight, eyes, how it works. Our ophthalmologists and eye specialists know something. But Aditya Deva knows much, much more of all kinds of sight, not only human sight, but sights of other creatures, like a fly, for example, has multiple lenses in its eyes. Knows all about how they work. And because, not all about, but apekshaya are all about it. But because of that knowledge, they also have apekshika power, praktimatvam. Therefore, when we say, I pray to Aditya Bhagavan to help me with my eyesight, it makes sense. There's a specific request for a specific thing about eyes that I pray to that Devata. Now, you cannot therefore say, no, my only Bhagavan is Aditya. The same thing actually in an external form holds for any form of Devata. A Varuna knows all about waters. How life cannot exist without water. I mean, all the scientists are going to the moon and trying to find out if there's any water anywhere. They know life cannot exist without water. Varuna also knows and can control the destructive power of water. Therefore, he is Devata for that aspect. Sarvajñatvam in an apekshika way, Sarvashaktimatvam in an apekshika way, in that field. So now you understand why I call them domain experts. Remember the story when various devatas, including Indra, Varuna, Vayu, etc., were exulting after their victory over the Asuras. The fact that they were exulting indicates that they are not Purna. The fact that they were in that kind of spirit indicates that they are not Purna. They are not the Nirguna Brahma we are trying to understand, that Atma that we are trying to understand. And they had to be taught a lesson by the Shruti herself, in the form of Uma, appeared as a Yaksha and showed them where they thought they had all the power, they showed, so you don't have all the power. Why you thought I had all the power to blow anything away? You can't even blow away Tinka without me. A blade of grass you can't do. Agni cannot burn a dried piece of grass without me. They are all dependent on this Chaitanya. So even those devatas are not very sure about Vichikitsa, asti tyeke, nasti tyeke. So that which Nachiketa asked for, that which devatas are also not sure of, or debating all the time, which Nachiketa later asked in a more pointed way. Anyad dharma dharma. In fact, here is this thing, Acharya says, dharma adibhya. Dharma adibhya. Not only dharma. Cause and effect, karana karya, time, space, anything you can take, that which transcends all of them. That tat padam, that atma, that chaitanyam, loosely called consciousness principle in English. I'm not very happy with that phrase because it can get misunderstood. Chaitanyam is a better word to use. That beyond which there's nothing. See, other than that, there's nothing which you can say there is nothing beyond that. That is why I said no scientist working all his life in a particular field will ever get up and say, I know everything that is to be known in that field. Because the more you know how much you don't know. But this is the only thing, that consciousness, that Chaitanyam, which lights up everything. What words can we use? Which enlivens everything, which gives everything its energy, which makes everything look sentient, where everything borrows the very existence from. These are words, but you have to understand the words. That Atma, that Tat Padam, Vehe Nachiketa, which he asked for, Yasmat Param Nasti. Tat. Why? Indeed, that Tat is Etat. This is what we have been studying in this mantra, says Dharmaraja. That Tat, you know, Yena Sarvamidam Tatam, you've seen the Bhagavad Gita. That which pervades everything means what? That which is the very reason for the existence of everything. Our Shruti has various ways of expressing this. You've seen Tat Srishtva, having created, enters into it. Right. Where is Brahman going to enter anything? Brahman not going anywhere. Brahman is space. How can you talk about entry and exist? There isn't any such thing. But the Tat Padam, that which everything is the Tat Padam, is what Dharmaraja explains using very beautiful prakriya called Drishya. How he shows everything is Drishya. There's only one Drik. Only one which is a revealer, knower. When you use these words, I'm using a word ER, knower. Hey, there is no ER, there's nothing. No, Brahman has no nothing. But do you understand what we're saying? We are imbuing kartrutvam by saying knower, revealer, etc. There's nothing. It is the very presence of this which makes these possible. And we are talking, whenever we talk about you, knower, seer, we are talking only within the Jagat. I am the knower. But how am I the knower? Because there is Chaitanya. It looks like I am the knower. The scientist is the knower. Devata is the knower. Because the Chaitanyam is there, backing it all the time as Sakshi. Therefore, that is the ultimate Drik, the source of that, of every kind of knowledge, every kind of perception, every kind of experience. That Chaitanyam, which is what Nachiketa asked for. This is what I've explained to you now in this mantra. Acharya has taken trouble to expand it and show it to us. It is still something which the words I understand. But how do I understand the aparoksha jnanam? I have to hear it again and again. I have to think about it again and again. Therefore, Shruti takes the trouble to again show the same thing in another way, with another perspective, with another prakriya. They look at it like this. Here I've also already shown you that which is the ultimate drik. But if you look at the entire our samsara and my being has only three existent states. I'm either awake, or I'm asleep, or I'm dreaming. Neither awake nor asleep. There is no other state. And these are mutually exclusive states. When I'm dreaming, I'm the dreamer. I can neither be the waker nor can I be the sleeper. Same way, when I'm a sleeper, I'm neither the dreamer nor the waker. When I'm in deep sleep, nothing functions. The body is unmanifest. All the sukshma sharira is unmanifest except prana. Everything is unmanifest. But something is there. Something which reveals the fact that you are now a sleeper. Same thing with the dreamer. Only mind is active. It is projecting a whole samsara. How do I know? How do I know I am in a waking state? Not what I know in the waking state. How do I know I am in the waking state? I am a waker. How do I know I am a waker? How do I know I'm a dreamer? How do I know I'm a sleeper? Something is there. The dreamer is mutually exclusive with the other two. The dreamer is mutually exclusive with the other two. The sleeper is mutually exclusive with the other two. Then what is it that is common? What is it that makes me know I am now the sleeper, I am now the dreamer, I am now the waker? What makes me know all that? That which makes me know all that is another way of looking at saying that is that tat, that Chaitanya. Otherwise, it is so very difficult to understand that knowledge, aparokshataya, I have to understand. To understand that which is atisukshmam, sukshmam iti kim? You can't just translate saying very subtle. Not available, not easily perceptible. That aparoksha jnanam, that whichever way you look at it, there is no way I can arrive at a conclusion other than saying I is the Atma, Atma is what I call Brahman, that Brahman is I. No other conclusion is possible. Every other conclusion is open to debate and rejection. That is why we call it Ati Sukshma. Guhyat Guhyatamam Jnanam. Not available easily. Not available in my senses on which I depend for every knowledge. Not available. So how am I going to know? Ati Sukshma. So Acharya picks it up from there and he says, you've seen this now. If you understood just by that one mantra here, Yena Rupa Rasa Gandham Ityadi Anupashyati Tadeva Tatatma. If you've understood, you don't need to read anything else. But we know that doesn't happen. So Acharya connects to the next mantra with the usual single sentence it takes to connect this. Have you understood? I think I have understood the words, but I'm not sure that I understand the concept. Try again. He says, Ati Sukshmatvat.
अतिसूक्ष्मत्वात्
दुर्विज्ञेयमिति
दुर्विज्ञेयम् इति
मत्वा तम एव अर्थम पुनः पुनः आह
तम् एव अर्थं पुनः पुनः आह
अतिसूक्ष्मत्वात् दुर्विज्ञेयम् इति मत्वा, being not available for all the senses, that apekshika jnanam is durvijneyam. I recognize that as being not easy to understand. Iti matva, knowing it to be like that. Despite the fact I have been doing Shravanam for so many days, the mantra sounds as if it is absolutely correct and logical. But as soon as I go out from the class, all kinds of pressures around me. Because I'm still thinking of me. Well, I have to continue to do that. He says, Durvijneyam iti matva. This artham punah punah, to gain this knowledge, to gain this clarity of meaning, punah punah. Again and again, in different ways, Shruti says that to us. So hopefully, at some point, the bulb will light. Very difficult. No, if you can draw a cartoon, you can say bulb lit in somebody's head. But head itself is non-existent. What bulb is going to light? Yeah. Timatva etameva artham punah punah aha. Says what? Swapnantam
स्वप्नान्तं
jagaritantam
जागरितान्तं
cha ubhau
च उभौ
yena anupashyati
येन अनुपश्यति
mahantam vibhumatmanam
तं विभुमात्मानं
matva dhiro na shochati.
मत्वा धीरो न शोचति.
This Atma, which is Mahan, which is Vibhuhu, that Atmanam, second case, Atmanam, knowing Matva, that I am or I is, maybe easier to understand, that Atma, that Mahan Atma, that Vibhu Atma, Tam Jnatva, knowing that Dhiraha na shochati. You'll see this many places. Dhiraha na shochati, does not grieve. Does it remind you of Arjuna? Ashocyan anvashochastvam. Once you understand you're a dhiraha, there's nothing to grieve. But that's only limited wording, grieve. I mean, there is nothing. There's nothing to exult, there's nothing to get depressed about. Like I said, the Devatas also were exulting. Clear indication that their knowledge is still not complete. Matva dhiraha na shochati. Matva what? Kim? That Mahan Vibhum Atmanam Nyatva as myself, as the I. Therefore, anything else I thought I is not right. That much one gets. And what is that I? Swapnantam, Jagritantam cha ubhau yena anupashyati. How do you know you are the dreamer? By what means do you know you are the dreamer? By what means do you know you are the waker? also, by what means do you know you're the sleeper? Because you know all of them. No, I have understood it in my brain. How did the brain understand? Something is activating all that. Something is giving it sentience. That something which is giving it sentience, that Atmanam Nyatva. So another prakriya. So you say that my entire life is only a cycle of waking, sleep, dream, waking, sleep, dream is the only cycle. There is no other state of existence. If that is all that I have, and I know that they are each one mutually exclusive, that when I am a sleeper, I am not a waker. When I am a waker, I am not a dreamer, unless I am daydreaming. It is mutually exclusive. What is it that is commonly seeing all of these and recognizing the waker, recognizing the sleeper, recognizing the dreamer? That you identify as Mahan Vibhuhu Atma. I. That Atma is I, that Atma is Brahman, that Brahman is I. There is nothing else. So Acharya takes it up from there. And so if you want to do an Anvaya, it will go something like Swapnantam, Swapna Pradarthan, Jagritantam cha Ubhau, both of them, both states, including the third state, Sushupti Sthanam, where Pradhartha Anama Bhavam, there is nothing recognizable in deep sleep. But still you recognize deep sleep. That I was a deep sleeper last night. I slept like a log. You recognize that. By what do you recognize that? Even when no recognizing faculty is active. So something is there even in that deep sleep. It's the same something which was in waking, the same thing which was in dream, the same thing which was in deep sleep. That Mahan Atma, by which you see this, Yena Anupashyati, that Mahantam Vibhum Atmanam Matva, knowing that Dhiraha na Shochati. A Dhira Purusha doesn't behave like a yo-yo. Today depressed, next time in very high spirits, again depressed, again very high spirits, doesn't behave like that. We'll read the Bashyam. Swapnantam,
Swapnantam,
Swapnamadhyam,
Swapnamadhyam,
Swapna Vigneyamiti Etat.
Swapnam Vigneyam Etat, Iti Etat.
Swapnantam, he
Itartha.
says, Acharya says, Swapna Madhyam. In the Swapna, during the Swapna, all the objects you recognize. You recognize also that I am in the state of Swapna. All the objects of experience are known. And you as the dreamer is also known, by which. Similarly, Tatha
Tatha
Jagaritantam
Jagarititantam
Jagarita Madhyam
Jagarita Madhyam,
Jagarita Vigneyancha.
Jagarita Vigneyancha.
So in a similar way, during waking hours, when all our Sthula Sharira and Sukshma Sharira are manifest and alive and acting as they should act, and their acting itself is dependent acting. On their own, they can do nothing. Neither the physical Sharira nor the Sukshma Sharira can do. Sukshma Sharira cannot even exist without it. That something, that Atma, that Mahan Atma, that Vibhu Atma, Jagrata Vigneyancha, it recognizes the Jagrat state that I am awake now. How do you know? Oh, all my faculties are working. That is not good enough reason. How do all the faculties work? What makes the eyes see? What makes the ears hear? Chakshushu chakshushu, sotrasya sotram. Something else is there. Dehadi vilakshanam, something is there. It is not physically vilakshanam, you can't separate it. But something is there. Jagrata Vigneyancha. You can add to this also Swapnantam. Ubhao.
Oh,
Can you put that down back? Swapna Jagaritantau.
Swapna Jagiritantav,
Yena Atmana Anupashyati.
Yena Atmana Anupashyati,
Lokah iti sarvam purvavat.
Lokaha iti sarvam purvavat.
This, both Swapna and Jagrati and Shushupti, how do you recognize? Yena Anupashyati, by which you see. How? Atmana. By the Atma. It is not a Tritiya in the sense an instrumental case. By the very presence of the Atma. Without the presence of the Atma, there is nothing where there is no presence of Atma. Because this is Vibhuhu, all-pervading, Tatam. So, that by which you know both Swapna, Jagratantau, Yena Anupashyati Lokaha, Iti Sarvam Purvavat. This is what I've been saying all the time. By which you know Rupa Rasa Gandha, etc. By which you know the three avasthas, avasthatraya, viveka. I recognize all the three states of being. And how do I recognize? There is that Atmana Anupashyati. Kaha Anupashyati? Manushya. Jiva Anupashyati. How does he see? You are saying all the time that the senses cannot access this. So how do you say Pashyati? So you use the word Anupashyati here in the mantra also, and Bhashyakara also uses this. Rupnantam Jagratantam cha ubhau yena anupashyati. So it is one commentator says this, instead of using just Pashyati, use Anupashyati. It may also be to do with meter, but what his argument is, you cannot see because you don't have the capacity to see. Only through Shastra as a pramana, other than the various pramanas we already have, which we use to know all objects of the Jagat. through that Shastra, with the help of a Guru, that becomes my pramana. Only with that pramana can one see, therefore, anupashyati. Yena atmana lokaha anupashyati. Repeatedly he said that. That by which we know all the senses, that by which we know all the avastha, traya. Ultimately, that is the only beauty is that Atma, to say that Atma is the knower is incorrect. Atma doesn't know. Atma is only a sakshi. It is there, therefore knowing becomes possible. Without the Atma, no knowing is possible. Therefore, anupashyati. Therefore, in the Hindu Jiva, anupashyati, with Shastra as a pramana, with the help of a Guru, anupashyati. What anupashyati? All the objects during swapna, all the objects during Jagrata avastha, the very fact of the Jagrata this avastha itself, very knowledge of the swapna avastha itself, very knowledge of the Sushupti avastha itself, that by which you know is called Atma, self. And then the second line is appeared before, if you remember. Mahantam vibhum atmanam matva dhiraha na shochati. This word like matva, nyatva, indicates that I know the aikyam. Tat padam. Repeatedly you will see this. The tvam padam, the tvam anupashyati, the tat is that mahantam vibhum, mahan vibhuhu atma is tat padam. Matva, understanding the aikyam. Mahavakya. Previous one also we saw that. We have all the senses working, tvam-pada. But we also said that by which you know the senses, tat-pada. And there also the use of the word vijanati. That by which you know. That which brings in the aikyam. Here also, Mahavakya only. That is why he says, etad vaitat. This is that tat, why, that tat that he asked for is this indeed. Etad vaitat. In the previous one, Acharya had explained, if you remember, that when you say Mahan Atma, we use the word Mahan quite a bit, Brihat, etc., Mahan, etc. One could think of them as Apekshika, because that is all we know. Relatively very big, relatively very long in terms of time. So Atma could also be like that. Mahan Atma. Like I said, Devatas are relatively Mahan. Why can't this Atma also be relatively Mahan? Mahatasya apekshika shankhayam aha vibhu. Vibhu means vyapinam. Sarvavyapi. You understand the word now? Sarvavyapi we use very casually. That Sarvavyapi Vibhu. Vibhu means that which pervades everything. Therefore, use of the word Vibhu to remove any possible confusion, any possible doubt that this could be apekshika mahatvam. No. And once you understand that, dhiraha, dhiman, na shochati, does not respond, react. Some reaction will be there. After all, we are in this jagat in a human form. So the form will respond, react. But internally, no reaction. Tam mahantam
Tam mahantam
vibhum atmanam matva
vibhum atmanam matva
avagamya
avagamya
atma bhavena sakshat aham asmi
Atma-bhavena sakshat aham-asmi.
iti Paramatma
Paramatma
iti
Paramatma
Paramatma
iti
iti
dhiraha na shochati.
dhiraha
dhiraha na shochati
shochati.
Tam mahantam vibhum atmanam matva. That atma, which I recognize as that something which is the Chaitanya Swarupa, because of which I recognize myself in the three avasthas. Earlier we said because of which I recognize all the drishya. That Mahan Atma, which is Vibhu, therefore we are not talking about Apekshika Mahatvam, we are talking about the absolute, knowing which, Matva, you can also translate Matva as thinking. I think it is like this. No. Avagamya. Jnatva, knowing it to be true, knowing it, this Atma, as myself. Why is it that today, Swamiji, I think I have understood, but I'm still subject to all this shoka and everything else that goes with it? What one has to understand is avagamya katham atma bhavena sakshat aham asmi. That Atma that I have recognized as the one because of all perception is possible, that Mahanatma I've understood as Avagamya Atma Bhavena as myself, Sakshat Ahamasmi. Aham kimasmi? Paramatma eva. Aham Paramatma. Now today when we say this, all of us can relate to it. At least at one level we can relate to it. But can you imagine when somebody starts studying, first time he's coming, he doesn't know what the background is. To him you say this. Aham Paramatma iti jnatva. How would he react? He will react. Today, after doing all this, so much of Shravanam, so much of Mananam, when Shastra makes a statement like this, Tam Mahantam Vibhum Atmanam Matva Avagamya, therefore, Atma Bhavena Sakshat Ahamasmi Paramatma iti. it begins to make some sense, some clarity. That I and this Paramatma, which is the Atma, whose presence as a Sakshi makes everything possible. That Atma, formless, propertyless, not contained by time or space, that Atma I am. So far, what have we been saying? I am so and so. I am Manushya. I am Bharatiya. I am sad. I am wanting something or the other. Now the whole thing has changed. For the Dhira Purusha, once the clarity is there, is Sakshat Ahamasmi Paramatma. Very awkward stage. Because the Sharira is still there. Sharira has to be maintained. You have to go to the gym, you have to eat. All that you do with the Sharira has to continue. That's why sometimes I find, some of these people who probably have understood, give no credence to the body at all. They could care less. Body dies. Body doesn't get any nourishment, doesn't get any nourishment. And we look at them from outside and say, my God, what's wrong with him? What we don't recognize is everything is right with him. Wrong with him is us, our perception. No. He doesn't care. Sometimes people seem to reach that state. I am so careful. I have to have my dress ironed properly. Why? When I was studying, there was another student studying who used to wear only the black, sometimes some of these people wear. And I had got my clothes from the presswala at that time. And he said, why are you giving so much importance to dress? I was quite shocked at that. It was the early days when I just come to study. But there is something to think about. Matva dhiraha na shochati. Tomorrow, if the shirt that you're wearing is not ironed, you feel uncomfortable. But that stage will come when one doesn't care about any of these things. When one recognizes that the body mind sense complex with which I had identified myself all these years, reinforced by everybody around me, is a false notion. No, Swami, but I have to maintain my body. Why? Why should you maintain your body? Once you recognize the body, I am not the body, why should you maintain the body? Let it die. No, Swami. If I don't maintain my body, I am not yet a jnani. I'll have great difficulty in even doing Shravanam Mananam. Yeah, that's logical. Therefore, I have to maintain my body. It's fine. Not because what somebody is saying about me. People sometimes take it to the other extreme. In Bhaja Govinda, there is one, Just because you don't take care of your hair, it becomes matted and galitam mundam. You don't become a Mahan. But if you become a Mahan, if you understood Matva Avagamya, then you don't care about that. Very different. One is to say, I'm copying somebody who is a Mahan, and therefore I think I'm a Mahan by using my hair the way he uses it. No. I use my clothes, my hair, my everything else, the way I use it because I have understood. It is very different from saying that I'm hoping that by emulating that great man, that Mahan, I will also become Mahan. You're not going to become Mahan because of that. You're going to become Mahan only by knowledge. Because there's nothing to become. You are already Mahan. I only have to recognize it. Mahantam vibhum atmanam jnatva dhiraha na shochati. Shochati is only indicative of not reacting. Any kind of reaction. This and the next mantra, actually, you should read together because your etad vaitat comes after the next mantra, right? So this is about what is the tat padam, what is that paramatma, and what is the tvam padam, and how do you look at the aikyam. It continues into the next mantra. Ya imam madvadam veda.
Ya imam madvadam
imam
veda.
madvadam veda
Atmanam jivamantikat.
atmanam jivamantikat
Ishanam bhutabhavyasya.
ishanam bhūta bhavyasya
Na tato vijugupsate.
na tato vijugupsate
Etad vaitat.
etad vaita.
Earlier mantra he said, na shochati. Here he says, na vijugupsate. Does not seek any protection. I can really talk a little about this idea. I seek protection all the time. But one who understands the aikyam between the experiencer of karma phala, which is the jiva, as not being different from jivam antikat ishanam. What kind of ishanam? Bhuta bhavyasya. That Isha, Ishvara, Parameshwara, independent of Bhuta Bhavya, past, present, etc. etc. It means everything else. Karana Karya, space. When Jivam Antikat, Veda, knowing that Antikat here means non-separateness, identity. Knowing that identity, na vijugupsate. That which does not, is not limited or contained by time, space, ityadi, that having understood that to be the I, etad vaitat. We will do this in the next class. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Sri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.
Om Swamiji.
Everybody.
धन्यवादाः नमस्कारः पुनः मिलामः
नमस्कारः स्वामीजी धन्यवादाः